You are watching the Jennylyn Show, and I'm Jennylyn Gleave, your host. And as always, I find the best people to bring on this set to share their fascinating stories with us. Tonight, I'm especially excited to share my guest with you, Dr. Daniel Beilin. And if I said his name wrong, correct me, Dr. Beilin.
No, that's perfect. That's
Thank
great.
you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, Jennylyn, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you because what you are doing excites me. I have been the recipient of some of what you're working on, and I cannot wait for you to share it all with us.
I'm very glad to be here, and it's been a long path, but I'm in practice as well as have invented from European technologies a new technology that can scan the entire body functionally in functional physiological terms, which is quite different than the images that are normally seen in medicine performed by X-ray or MRI or those kinds of imaging methods.
Right.
So I want to tell you about that.
But before you tell me about that, you were teaching doctors at UCLA. Am I correct?
I was part of a gastroenterology team whereby we were stopping bleeding in the GI tract. So I was part of a group of researchers at the Center for Ulcer Research. And we found new methods to stop bleeding in both the esophagus with injecting special types of chemicals to stop blood vessels from bleeding in alcoholics.
Right.
And also in stopping bleeding in the lower GI tract with various
And what did you do at Davis?
At Davis, I was pre-med, pre-vet, and I would do some adventurous things. At the same time, I was taking a full load of about 30 units. I was involved in neurosurgical research, and I was part of a team in stroke research, whereby our group was one of the first groups to find that you can decrease the amount of brain damage during stroke if you administer barbiturates to take people down into a near comatose state, which allows the brain to reestablish its vasculature, so you decrease the amount of brain death. So that's what they do now in modern medicine. This was 33 years ago. So then I continued and I said, look, I don't want the tunnel vision of these neurosurgeons. They were so hyper-specialized. They only cared about their own path. I come from a creative background. I played guitar and violin. I wanted to be creative and think for myself. And so I had a friend that was the youngest veterinarian to graduate in the country from Cornell.
Okay.
And he said, let's go to LA and do acupuncture, and I'll use it for animals and you use it for humans. So I said, yeah, I think that might be good, because I was already interested in homeopathy and non-drug ways to treat people. And so I went to acupuncture school, and then I got a doctorate in Oriental medicine, and then started to study in Europe.
Well, the reason I was asking you that is because I wanted to have you tell me, because it sounds like you started off with practicing Western medicine, and then to tell us how you wound up on this side of the spectrum.
Well, I was a research physiologist,
okay.
And I was involved in top research at UCLA and UC Davis in orthodox medicine. So I had enough of that. And so what I do is I act as a liaison with my patients with their orthodox medicine conventional methods, because some people need some chemotherapy, and so we try to augment the chemotherapy. We can actually give herbs that can actually help chemotherapy to work better, or to decrease the amount of chemotherapy they would use over a long period of time. So functional medicine or herbal medicine has a pharmacology to it, it has a science to it.
Okay.
It's not just this traditional thing that we accept from the past.
Right.
They've been studied, they've been tested. There's just as many, if not more, studies on herbal medicines than there are in drug medicine. And these are things that have never hurt anybody. So there's an added advantage, because we can get an FDA approval of a new drug, and 2 years later, the studies were done wrong. It was hurting people, and then creating more problems.
Well, yeah, because back in the day, in the 18th century, those are some of the same herbs they used, right?
Well, take 5,000 years of Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. So if we can, I think the new hospital of the future and the new funding of new hospitals should closely involve non-drug treatments of chronic disease. Acute disease, yes, we need drug medicine. We need surgery, of course. We need all of our modern methods, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and throw away the natural things that won't hurt anybody if there's a way to help people. It's like the discovery now of probiotics, how important the gut is to the brain, how important the gut is to our whole health system. That's something that we knew 30 years ago in Orthodox medicine. When I was a physiologist at the Center for Ulcer Research at UCLA, we had specialists come in and talk about the brain-gut axis 30 years ago. Just now, they redo the research. It's the funniest thing. Have you ever looked on the internet or looked at papers that say something that you knew 20 years ago or 10 years ago?
Absolutely.
So it's like they have to rediscover something over and over because, I don't know, it has to do with drug companies wanting to grab a piece of it or something like that. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, we shouldn't be competitive. We should be within the system. We should handle chronic patients that aren't getting answers from continued antibiotics, which now they discovered, oh, maybe it's not a good idea to continue people for more than a month on an antibiotic. And that's something that we knew 20 years ago. We knew there was mutations. So we knew there was bacteria that could change in its structure and change in its form. And we say, from where I come from, which is the European way of looking at things, you treat the terrain of the body because that's what makes people vulnerable. You treat the vulnerabilities of people. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to focus on a particular infection. Maybe you use an antibiotic for 10 days and that's it. But we also build the environment. And so I use different methods to try to look at what is the environment of a disease. Not that we're treating a cancer. I don't treat a cancer. You treat a person that has had systems that allowed for the cancer. Let the oncologist treat the cancer.
So tell me about that.
Well, why do people get cancer?
Yeah.
Okay, so there may be some gene expression. However, that's being overcome by epigenetic research. Okay. They have a whole department at Harvard now in epigenetics, which is the transfer of certain types of methyl groups and certain triggers to genes. In other words, all of us have cancer genes. It's ridiculous to think that we don't. We all have genes that could express cancer.
So what causes them to start attacking the body and become your enemy?
Exactly. So that's what my interest has been, and that's what the new medicine needs to focus on. So far, we've learned that it has to do with methylation, something called methylation. It has to do with environmental toxins, whether it's heavy metals like mercury, arsenic, cadmium, lead. We know how bad those are for the body.
We put some in our teeth.
So if you go to a dentist that's a more modern dentist, they don't do that anymore. Okay. They believe that the amalgam of the mercury bonds and makes the person safe from that actual mercury. Okay. However, it slowly leaks into the body. And did you know that if you go to the dentist and he pulls out a mercury filling, that under law, that's regarded as highly toxic waste, and it has to be disposed of in special containment vessels, which means, like, wait a second, how could it be unsafe out of the body and safe in the body? So what do we have in our saliva?
Amazing.
I mean, what do we have in our saliva?
Right.
Certain acids and certain enzymes that slowly, and there are even YouTube videos where they can see the mercury vapor coming off when you're just chewing.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so you can just see what we're inhaling. And the main vector for mercury is the mercury gas that goes right into the bloodstream. So there's many things to be aware of. There's the metabolism of our liver is responsible for over 3,000 processes. How could they all be performing perfectly? Well, a lot of us have dysfunctional areas and biochemical pathways of the liver. So we should all at one time rotate through different herbs that have been known to help the liver, like dandelion, like milk thistle, and the Chinese have very good formulas for the liver. So we should take care of our healthy organs. That's what it comes down to. We need to take care of what's healthy, and that will give us resistance later on.
But how are we going to get our doctors, as you call them, orthodox doctors, to buy into this? Because what's going to happen to the pharma industry and all these drugs that, I mean, somebody's going to want to kill me, but what's, I mean...
I don't think that the pharma industry has much to worry about, however they think they do, but I think they're always going to be taken care of by, you know, people who need the drugs. If I'm running a blood pressure of 180 over 100, I might need to use something for a while until we figure out the mechanism. The mechanism of hypertension, though, can come from the liver. It can come from the kidneys. And so what I've learned to use is a special method that I want to tell you about.
Okay.
And this method is a non-invasive, no radiation way that we can see the reflection of your own physiology out on the skin. In other words, our skin is comprised of maps through our nervous system.
Really?
We have an involuntary nervous system, right?
Okay.
It's called the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
That's composed of two elements and maybe a third. Sympathetic, which is the activation nervous system, which causes our heart to constrict and to pump, and then the relaxation, which is the parasympathetic. In our society, we're too high strung in the sympathetic nervous system. This has been shown at UCLA. There was a very good study that was done 3 years ago by the Department of Neurology, the Reed Neurological Institute at UCLA, that established the fact that overactivity of the sympathetic nervous system increases chances for metastases of a tumor. If a person has a cancer already, say they have a little cancer, if they're too wound up in their sympathetic nervous system, that predisposes a higher tendency towards spread of that cancer. And they've also discovered that if there's problems in the relaxation response, that can set the body up to produce a cancer. In other words, that epigenetic influences, the influences of all the defects of small organs over time, environmental factors. If we're sleeping under high tension power lines, how many of us turn off our Wi-Fi at night? Do you turn off your Wi-Fi in your house at night?
No, but it's far away from my bed.
Well, it doesn't matter. Does your computer receive it?
Yes.
When it's next to you?
Yes.
So your brain is receiving it, right? Do you want brain radiation every night?
I mean, this stuff is serious stuff. People don't know this.
So there are studies, and then they say, oh, well, those studies have been, questioned and things. There are some decent studies showing a rise of leukemia in children who are in schools next to high-tension power lines.
And some kids sleep with their phones under their pillows.
Think about that. The child is just forming the brain. That means that there are cells that are generating. We're all generating brain cells all the time, but it slows down as we get older. If we don't have the right fats, the good fats that feed the brain, then we will not be able to produce as much and to keep the brain healthy. So if you have Wi-Fi running in your house all night, when you're at sleep, you're in your most vulnerable state when you're asleep. So you need to sleep in a safe environment.
So the pictures that you have here, because believe it or not, half an hour goes by in a blink when we're doing these shows. I don't want us to run out of time without introducing the pictures that you brought.
So what we do is, this is FDA cleared, and we're also invited to do a study at Harvard Radiology. So we're dealing with the top university in the world,
Harvard,
for the breast imaging research department.
Okay.
And they are interested in our method because it is not infrared cameras. It is infrared sensor turning all the information into mathematics that uses algorithms to recognize patterns in the body.
Wow.
So we've determined over 40 years of doing this. I got into this 20 years ago, but already it had been going on in Germany for 20 years. So we have 40 years of research in about 60,000 patients.
So after a while, they wouldn't use mammograms anymore to check the breast?
You still need some form of image. Now the breast image, the best one is MRI.
Okay.
So Dr. Laura Esserman, who I know at UC San Francisco, is the queen of breast imaging MRI. She's a physicist, she's a radiologist, and a surgeon.
Okay.
So, but we're missing something in medicine. We have imaging. The imaging is fantastic. Mammograms are still useful. This doesn't replace mammograms.
Okay.
This is another test for your health of tissue, of the physiology. Physiology means how well things are working as they're dynamically working. Like if you go on a plane and someone has a cold and you don't get that cold, your immune system is functioning.
Okay.
But we can see deficits or weaknesses of the immune system by this method
can set it down now
that
if you're
can
finished.
show that why you maybe got really sick from this person next to you where someone else didn't.
Okay.
So we're testing the skin twice dynamically while the person is subjected to cool air in between, and it shows like a fight or flight reaction.
Got it.
And as there's a secret to the fight or flight reaction, that we can see dynamically how someone behaves.
Okay. And the other pictures, are those related to the same? I didn't want us to run out of time.
These are all the points that we measure. It takes 5 minutes to measure the first 100 points.
Okay.
And then you sit with just your underwear on for 10 minutes. And that cools you, that causes the sympathetic response that goes through the spinal reflex that connects the organ to the skin. So the organs are actually projecting their status to the skin.
Okay.
And we have ways to interpret that have been known and clinically proven by normal tests over time.
We have to do another show after this one. It's too much stuff, but it's fascinating.
And then these are syntheses of the before and after. So we can see that here there are bars that show severe contributions. This was one about breast health. They're showing the severe contributions because the breast is not just the breast. That's something that conventional medicine just keeps thinking. You take an image of the breast, oh, that tells us about the breast. No, there's hormone inputs, there's lymphatic inputs, there's digestive. We find that this point right here, where it shows over the stomach, always gets cold in breast cancer. Every breast cancer patient, or 90% of them, this point is much colder than almost any point of the whole body.
Can the patient check it themselves?
Well, if they have, you can actually buy something, but I wouldn't trust myself to do that. It's better you do this. Now, this is not deemed by FDA as diagnostic. It's called adjunct diagnostic. That means you still need to send out for laboratory tests, but this educates the doctor of where to look, so he doesn't have to guess. In other words,
but are doctors aware of this, or is this like, because I've never heard of it before now?
Right. Well, this is in 160 clinics, 3 hospitals in Malaysia, Switzerland, and Germany.
Let's talk America.
Soon to be in Thailand and China. So we just showed it to a group in Thailand that's conventional medicine and anti-aging medicine.
Yes.
And they're going to be buying 3 of these to have in all their clinics.
Well, what about here?
And here we have 160 small clinics, mostly alternative medicine or functional medicine clinics. But if we're doing the study in Harvard in the next year, and that's going to break through the barrier, and it's going to gain acceptance because we think, if everything is correct, that we have secrets to what goes wrong in breast cancer patients, and we'll know how to gauge that and how to keep the terrain or the environment from producing a cancer.
Well, you have been exposed to both sides of the medicine. Why do you think that the Western medicine is so resistant to some of these practices and some of these studies?
Well, I would say half of it is worthy of being resistant. I could tell you that there's big problems with the infrared cameras, and the radiologists have told me, and real experts of infrared camera thermography have told me they're not properly calibrated to the human body, and they've been claiming that they are, and they've been claiming that they're correct, and they're wrong half the time.
So they're giving false reads on all these people?
Yeah, false positives, false negatives. That was thrown out by radiology 30 years ago. And there's only 1 or 2 cameras in the world. One is made in Germany that is fairly well calibrated, but no one knows, only a few people, only a handful of people know how to interpret the results correctly. So if you go to Harvard Radiology, they say, please don't talk to us about infrared cameras. And I believe they're correct. I'm sorry for my colleagues in functional or, integrative medicine that use infrared cameras. I kind of like when I contact them and when they're looking at getting this machine, they, say, well, we don't want to get rid of our infrared. And I said, that's fine. Just get some more information that's taken from digitized algorithms and to add to your education. But we need imaging that's done in normal radiology.
So now that you've been exposed to all of this, because you clearly have a really good understanding, now the onus is on you to start creating some change. Are you doing that, and how do you plan to do it?
So there is a network that I'm starting to work with in India that already has the infrastructure to go into multiple communities in rural India. We're going to make a smartphone version of this and hand it to these communities to be able to upgrade women's health. If we do a mass work like that, then we can we're free to do that, and there's the money to do that, then we can make a huge influence, as well as doing the Harvard study, and one of their conventional hospitals is going to do a study as well. So we're trying to add to their information about what really causes breast cancer, because Harvard radiologists say, to this day, we don't understand why women get cancer in their pre- and perimenopausal years.
Believe it or not, we're down to like 3 minutes. Where did the time go? And before I think I see it up there. Before we wrap up, what haven't I asked you that's critical that you leave with the viewers?
That this technology is available. If you want to contact me, I can tell you who in your area might be doing it. This is something that's cleared by FDA. We used a very good attorney to very clearly explain what this is, who's also a radiologist from Harvard turned lawyer. So we've done everything right.
Wow.
We've followed every requirement, every standardization. So I want to bring this out into the world, because just think of all the people going to the hospitals and they don't know whether they're getting the right thing, and they never know, and they have to wait for their pathology reports, they have to wait for their radiology reports. They could be working on their own health in so many ways that they're not told about in normal medicine. So there are great practitioners out there that are using herbal medicine, things that can't hurt anything. They know we're very well educated what could interfere with the drugs that they might need, and we stay away from that. And we're so there's increasing sanity in the integrative medical field.
And before we wrap up, I know that this will generate a lot of interest. Can you leave a website where people can contact you, an email address, and a phone number if you have one? Of course,
yes. I
think
go
for it. We're almost have to wrap.
Okay, so my clinic is in Santa Cruz and in Los Angeles. I'm at fortifyhealth.com, Fortify health.com, Fortify Health. And if you want to look at the thermographic unit, if you're a doctor and you're interested in this, it's under alfathermo.com, ALFA, like the Italian sports car, alfathermo.com.
Okay.
And our number is 685-1125.
I am so grateful to you because I am someone who just got helped by a doctor who's practicing like you. I was ill. I'd been in and out of the hospital system, and I felt crazy because everything was coming back normal, but I was still feeling sick, and I had to work. And in a single evening, he figured out what the problem was, gave me some herbs, and for the first time in 6 weeks, when I woke up the next day, I felt better, which is why I want to bring you here and other people like you, because at the end of the day, we don't want to sell drugs and sell all this stuff. We want to enjoy good health. And when we're not well, we want to find people who can help us. And I always believe in the natural way.
One of the things that I've noticed over and over my 33 years of practice is that sometimes, say with a thyroid, the doctors don't test all of the tests possible for thyroid, and one of them is when someone has autoimmune thyroid. And so there's a lot of people walking around that needed one more blood test, but the doctor didn't happen to do that one, and they still don't know what's wrong. So it can be a little bit of negligence from the medical system, and then it could be coming to integrative medicine, understanding all of the influences. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thanks to my crew. I love them. I could never produce a show without them. And thank you for watching the Jennylyn Show. I hope you're paying attention. If you have questions, listen for the contact information, and please contact the doctor. Danielle, thank you so much. I am really happy that people like you are looking for alternative ways to help people.
Thank
you. And
you.
once again, thank you for watching the Jennylyn Show, and I will see you next time.